Good.
Right, we're live, and isn't that great how we start alive already laughing our heads off? I love that about me and Tanya. May I
Yeah.
say welcome to our show? Which one is it now, Tanya? You know, how many
I
how
don't
many have we
know.
done together?
5 or 6? I
It's
have
quite a
no
lot, isn't it?
idea.
Yeah, we've already got somebody like watching, you know, in our first 20 seconds. We must have had people like getting ready, going, oh, they're about to go live.
Yes, it's time. It's time.
So, for those of you that don't know, I'm Louisa Tanner Munson, and I've got the lovely TC Aila right next to me, who's also known as Tanya Castillo. How are you, Tanya? How are you today? Tell
I'm
me,
very
what have you been up
good.
to?
Today, I started my day in bathing myself in peace in bed. And then I went into the jacuzzi bathtub because I was feeling I wanted more of that, just staying in that. So I stayed there for another half an hour. So basically, the first hours of my day were just basking in peace and silence.
Oh,
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how much how slightly envious I am of the way you started your day this morning. The way my day started was with a foot to the head by a 2-year-old, followed by Mom, can you do this? Mom, can you do that? And I thought, right, okay, I've got everyone settled. And then I ran myself this lovely bubbly bath, got in the bath thinking, I'm going to
Mine
relax.
had bubbles. We had
Yeah,
bubbly baths.
yeah, we had bubbly baths together.
Both
And I was
of
in it
us.
for about 2 minutes before Carl said, our plans have changed. Get out your bath. We're off. So
Well, mine was a bit different then.
That sounds very peaceful. So we're talking about growing into love, and I've just realised that I've put at the bottom, have you grown into love, rather than, you know, how are you growing into love might be a better question. So this is our monthly meetup, isn't it? Where we just have a conversation that kind of flows and goes all over the place. And we're often joined by wonderful people from all around the world. And today we're being joined by Gregor, who's saying hello, Louisa and Tanya. Hello,
From
Gregor.
Slovenia. Hello,
Slovenia.
Gregor.
Hey.
Actually, Gregor will be coming to Portugal with another 3 people from Slovenia at the end of the month.
That's fantastic.
When we're having our live again.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Hey, Matea, how are you? So welcome to the show. So please do let us know. We're talking about growing into love, and you know, we come up with these different themes each month based on the astrology, and I'll talk through that in a second. But if you've got any experience, or if you want to share anything about how you are growing into love, or how you've grown into love, then please do let us know. Join us in the chat room. Just share whatever you like with us, and it becomes a co-creation, doesn't it, Tanya? You know, it's like the show is writing itself. So we've got Ali has joined us and said, caught you live. Yay. Which Ali are you? Can you let us know? I'd love to know who we're talking with and where you're from as well. And then Barbara is joining us. Hello, beautiful Louisa and Tanya. Hello, Barbara.
Hello, Ali and Barbara.
So, Tanya, what would you like to start off with about growing into love?
I'd like to spill the beans a little bit of why we chose this theme. We were actually having a conversation about love making.
Yes, we were, weren't we?
Louisa and I were having a conversation about how love making changes over the years, and how it becomes a whole different kind of experience. And then all of a sudden, Louisa says, let's get our theme about this for our next live. But, you know, for me, really, life is a whole love-making instance. And what does that mean? So, for instance, when I go and bathe in the lake, like these last days, the water's been really warm at 7 in the morning, 7:30. Wow. And it's incredibly warm because the days have been warm, and outside the temperature is lower. So when you go in, it's just like going into a bathtub. and I can't express the orgasmic feeling that comes through the whole body when I dive into that water and feel my spine firing up with that, just the bliss of being, of making love to nature, of being in that love space. So taking it beyond love making as an act of co-creation between two human beings, I would say that you come to a point where you grow into such a space of love within that you are literally making love all the time.
I love the sound of that. That's beautiful. I can't confess to having felt anything other than abhorrent shock getting into water. I'm a real baby when it comes to getting into water. I would feel like I'm making love to my bath, you know, my lovely.
That's good. That's good. That's water.
Love that. I sometimes feel that when I'm lying down underneath trees and looking up at the shadows that trees are forming. I feel like I'm being loved by the earth.
Yeah.
We've got a few more hellos.
There's so many instances of that, aren't there? If each person stops and realizes those instances are love making, are love in the making.
Yes. Let us know, how do you make love? I mean, we want to get down with all of the gossip here. You know, let us know, how do you make love, and how does it feel? So we've got a hello from lovely Joanna. We've also got Primos. Are you joining us from Slovenia as well?
He's also coming over.
Fantastic. So we'll see you very soon. And of course, it's Alice. It's Alice that's joining us. Alice from, if I'm okay to reveal, from Mississauga in Canada. So we've gone really far across the globe. Hello, both, she's saying.
Hi.
That's lovely. And then we've got Victoria, who's a new friend, who's actually in Lisbon. I'm hoping to meet up with Victoria maybe later on this week before we come out of our little trip to Lisbon. Victoria was actually online with Carl last night and her husband. And so, yeah, very sort of like tantric people. So Victoria, I'd love to hear how you make love to everything. I'd love to hear how that is for you. One of the reasons that we got into that conversation in the first place, Tanya, was we were talking about the energies of the astrology and how it was very strong about lovemaking and about control, but also about kind of losing the ego in our lovemaking. And without betraying any confidences, I mean, it was just between you and I anyway, on a really hot day, wasn't it? Hot afternoon while you were helping us. Bless you for that. We were saying that when we're with high energetic people with a high vibration, when you make love to them, or in fact, just when you're with somebody of a high vibration, it raises your vibration up, and you feel this beautiful release, you feel the freedom, etc. And then at some point, there is almost that fall from grace, isn't there? At some point when you're out of their company and all of a sudden the real world catches up with you. And we were saying how that happened with lovemaking too, you know, because it frees the energy so much, being in that exalted state, that things shift. It's a little bit like, I was trying to describe it to a client today on the phone, a bit like when you've been doing some cooking and you've got some ground on dirt and you put your pan in water to soak. And then as it soaks, the little bits of food that are really sort of like baked on, they float up to the surface. And I think, you know, when you've made love and felt really loved and had that beautiful energetic release, all those bits of dirt and grime that are baked on inside your soul, they start to rise up in your body. And so I've often found, and Carl and I have found, and, you know, it's no secret, I guess, if we make love, you know, there's almost like an inevitable argument the following day, like some kind of shitstorm happens where all of a sudden we get offended by each other, or we get really triggered and something really deep comes up. And so that was something that we both observed. What would you have to add to that? Because I saw you nodding about the baked on dirt.
Yeah, so what I would have to add is that when one is making love, and as opposed to having sex,
Yes.
it's a whole different thing. Like having a one-night stand or having sex just for the sake of it is not this lovemaking we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is a completely different thing. So when you are making love, and therefore you are in love in that moment with yourself and in yourself and with the person you are with, that necessarily raises the frequency and both become one. Because for it to be experienced as a real connection, each one has to disappear. Meaning
Yes.
that there cannot be at that point no you and me. Then it's just one whole instance of lovemaking. And what happens is that within that high vibration, that high frequency, whatever is unloved will afterwards have heard the cue at that moment that, oh, maybe it's time, maybe I can come forward and find myself loved by you. Are you capable of loving me now? Now that you have shown me love, and I'm not talking about you, the other one, I'm talking about the part of us. The part of us that comes up and says, okay, now that you can love that much, am I also included?
Yes.
So that's why whenever, not only when we are making love, but also in any moment, I find this a lot. Like, so let me see, when my life is really very magical and very beautiful and abundant and in all senses, and when people are with me for a while, like hours or a day or a few days after that, like when they leave, it's like they all of a sudden shit starts hitting the fan. and it's just because it's just because in those moments there was so much tranquility and ease and safety that then any part that was not still acknowledged or that had not been addressed or seen will just come forward and say, okay, so is it time now for me? And it will always be related to the energies of the moment. So the astrological energies that are available to integrate at that time, at that specific time. And of course, whatever is happening in the person's life at that moment. So wherever you are not living love, when you do experience love, then you will be questioned. Can I be loved too? So basically the irritations, the little triggers, all of that are nothing but this question: can you love me now? That's all they are.
Wow, that is fantastic. That totally relates. But before I like share how that relates for me, we've got a couple of messages that I'd like to share because everybody is so dear to us. I love all these comments. So true, dear Tanya. It's really wonderful to make love with everything around us. Nature embraces us with such gentleness. I would totally agree with that. May I also say, Joanna, when I embrace you, it actually feels totally gentle, and I feel so held and safe in your embrace. Isn't Joanna absolutely fantastic?
Yeah, definitely.
Literally holding space. It's really quite amazing.
Fantastic.
And Matea, yes, I can relate to what Tanya said. I love to dive into nature, or when I'm diving into myself, into the vastness of myself, and that truly feels good. Fantastic. Oh, Forfinius. That might be my husband wanting me to let me in. Let me just have a look out the window, if I may, because we're staying, just everyone that's listening, I'm staying at a friend's house in Lisbon at the moment, and I think my husband and children are locked out. So Tanya,
Okay.
take over for a second. One sec.
Okay, so I'll just go on with around this theme of love making. Still at the park, expats Portugal says. So they're not outside; they're coming in ease and grace. So I was gonna say another thing I have realized is that it is only really possible to experience the greatest heights in an experience of lovemaking with another or within whatever context of our reality when we finally are not seeking for it anymore, when we don't need it anymore, when we are just available for the pure joy of it. And which is interesting because, like, we might be seeking. Hello.
He wasn't there at all. And he's
No.
just put still at the park. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. I thought we were trying to be let in. Sorry, Tanya, you were saying, go on.
So I was saying that we can only really experience the greatest heights of the result of this connection that lovemaking opens when we no longer are seeking for that, or when we no longer feel the need or the craving for that. And then it provides itself, because then we are open. We are not holding on to any expectation, to any escapism, nothing. It's just being fully and totally there to receive the wholeness of it. So it's like some people experience or look for drugs or alcohol or whatever to experience great heights. And the funny thing is that the heights that one can experience through not only love making to another, but this whole experience of life becoming a love making experience, the heights that can be achieved like that are so beyond what any drug, any form of addiction could have produced, even addiction to sex, because it is empty. It is just a craving and a need and a lack, whilst love making for real is an abundance, is a complete shift of consciousness.
Yes, I would agree that I was always found left wanting more.
Yeah.
You know, in my previous relationship or sexual partners, it never felt like I was satisfied, not sexually, but there was this feeling that I'd lost something and that I wasn't replenished. You know, I'm delighted to share, especially seeing as my husband's watching from the park. I better give him a good reputation. But you know, I'm delighted that, you know, when we make love, that I feel like I'm glowing. I feel like I'm absolutely safe and absolutely held and loved. And that is probably why, you know, when you shared that it's those parts of you that are ready to ask, will you love me now?
Yeah.
They're the little monkeys that come up the next day, where Carl and I will be feeling triggered and have a little go at each other, have a little pop at each other. And then we always laugh and we say, oh yeah, we made love last night. Okay. Yeah. That's what we didn't.
That's fine. Okay.
But it takes a while to get used to that. And you could be left wondering how you got into that situation. We've got a comment here from Victoria. Love making and orgasm creates an opening into the divine and an opportunity to dance with the harmonizing of polarity in another, physically, emotionally, mentally, pranically and spiritually. There is a space to be. Sorry if I'm looking at this on a really small screen. If I'm looking like I'm squinting, that's why. There is a space to be and be with the engagement of the raw energy into high resonance and even change, transmute that energy for the small into the universal cosmic. Yeah, that feeling that you are changing something very small about yourself into something really vast. Have you ever made love with the sunset? It's the same with another when we are connected with source and the energies of the I've lost the rest of that. Hang on. Energies.
Well, it's not there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not aware of making love with the sunset before. Have you done that, Tanya? Given that, you kind of make love with
It's
lake.
that same feeling that just comes through and raises the kundalini and just it's it even produces that same sensation, well, not same, it's much better because you don't get headaches or anything. That same sort of sensation in the head, like when you drink a little bit too much or something, and you just get so high on that wholeness, that wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say hello to Shannon Renee Brown, who's joining us from Austin, Texas, with a little heart. Hello, Shannon. I hope you're well. And thank you for joining us. Carl, my beloved, has sent me a heart, so I'm guessing it's all okay that I've revealed all. But you were talking earlier about the sort of disappearing, that, when you're making love, at some level you're disappearing. I've experienced that outside of lovemaking, not with jumping into a lake, because that's just never going to happen in the same way, not yet. But, when I was living in Bali, I sang very regularly. I sang kirtan, and something about Sanskrit, something about the communion of singing with others. I don't know, just the practice of it really changed me, I think, at a cellular level. And so what happened quite a few times was I would feel something happen, a bit like, actually, like a really deep orgasm. There are moments where I feel like I could almost die in the ecstasy of it. It feels so intense that I almost feel like I'm going to die. It is similar as well to giving birth, which obviously doesn't feel as pleasurable, but there is this feeling of I'm yielding into something really amazing, and the feeling like I could die in a moment. But I would be singing, and then all of a sudden I'd feel this almost like breathlessness, like I was about to, like I couldn't take any more happiness. I couldn't take any more inside me. It's like I was going to burst. And then I would just wake up, or I would just suddenly be back in my body again and still singing, but thinking, hang on a second, what's in front of me has shifted. We're singing a different song. Or, I would be aware of the fact I disappeared for a certain period of time. And it also happened when I was cycling on a moped around Bali. I'd often be singing and practicing, singing, but just like enjoying, maybe not the sunset, like Victoria was asking, but just the communion with all the palm trees and the feeling of Bali. I mean, she's a very loving country. You really feel loved and held by her. And I remember sort of arriving and just not remembering any of the journey, but not like, when you're just driving down the road in a motorway and then you arrive and you're like, oh, where did that go? There was that feeling that disappeared. And it's also happened during lovemaking as well, where I just haven't been in the room. Like Louisa is not there. And
that's the ego just steps aside and gives way to your wholeness, to that's the thing, that's the open doorway to enlightenment, really. Basically, any experience of true lovemaking, be it with another or with this whatever, singing, dancing, communing with nature, there are so many different instances where that feeling is so intense and vibrant that it is really basically enlightening, as the ego just shuts off completely and there is just you blended with whatever it is that is happening at that moment. So there is no you and something else. There is just that.
Just the complete merge.
Yeah. And that, of course, brings the parts that are separate, that have been put aside deliberately, brings them forward afterwards and says, okay, can I also jump into that merge? Or do you still need me to play a role in your life?
Wow, that's just magnificent. So Victoria just shared, that's the heart opening when we feel like we could die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really has felt like that. And Victoria's also sharing the goddess Shakti is alive and respected for her magnificent forces and creativity in Bali. I would agree with that, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so these parts of us that come up then, I guess that is what we that's how we love ourselves much more deeply then, because we can identify those parts of us that need to be loved. Because I remember I've had similar experiences a couple of days before I got married to Carl. I felt so full of love, and I felt like, oh my goodness, everything is about to work out. And then I almost feel like I could die of the shock of it, or
Yeah.
I feel so elated that I feel like I can't carry on.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately after, I feel the fear. The fear comes up.
Mm-hmm. The
The
fear
fear
comes
of,
up to be
oh my
addressed.
goodness, what happens if he dies? What happens if I die? What happens to my children? Blah, 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 blah. And all this fear comes up.
Yeah.
And so it's the fear that wants to be loved. How would
Mm-hmm.
you cope with that, Tanya? What's your advice on that?
So when that, so you, if you're conscious of it, that you've had a moment of elation, there are two things. First of all, not allowing the elation to go into euphoria, because then what happens is that the mind grabs it and just takes you out of the present moment.
Yeah.
And then you are, of course, vulnerable to the fear, because that's where all of the emotions live. That's one thing. So when feeling very elated, just bringing it back down, in bringing the elation into you instead of living it out. So it's bringing it in. That's one part of the equation, and that will create a space of inner clarity that will allow us to see very, very clearly whatever is seeking for love. And so then the fear will step out of its hiding place, and it will be loud, and
Yeah.
it will try and distract you to tell you, no, but you need me because I have been taking care of you all this time, and that thing there that you've just felt is an illusion. And that is where you get the choice to decide where you're going to set both feet, because having one on one side and one on the other becomes terribly painful the more you experience that opening of the heart. The more painful it becomes to keep one foot here and one foot there. You just have to keep on making up your mind. Each time something that is separate comes up, you either step into separateness or you step into oneness. You just can't keep on coping with one foot here and one foot there. It's terribly, excruciatingly painful.
Yeah.
When the heart opens.
Yeah. Yes. I feel that because obviously I've had quite a few heart openings, but not stayed in it, and that's the difference. Because you have had, I mean, did you just have one big heart opening?
No, I had lots and lots and
forward?
lots. Yes. And then I had one big, big, huge one. From then onwards, I never went back to closing. But
Yeah.
then still more and more and more and more. But of course, then the paradigm shifted definitely. So then there was no more space for emotions in the way we conceive them as erratic or non-balanced. So yeah, but
I
lots of heart openings. Yeah.
I noticed about 5 minutes ago, and I wrote it down. You said all the emotions live in fear. A lot of that is what you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, and fear lives in the mind.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm just writing this down. Fear lives in the mind. The reason why I wanted to kind of refer back to that is a lot of people are really proud of their emotions and put some kind of special emphasis on being in touch with their emotions, and we're almost encouraged and empowered to get angry or to feel justified or to have these strong feelings, And Cole, my husband's actually really I don't know if he's dedicated, but he gets really growly about emotions. He doesn't like them. And he followed the teaching of Barry Long for a really long time. And then still, like, Barry Long is his like go-to place of wisdom when he feels a bit overwhelmed. But Barry Long talks about the emotions as almost like being demonic, you know, like they pull us out of bliss. And so, you know, Carl, I think his idea of us living an almost emotion-free life feels like a really, really great thing. But because of our programming and the world we live in, I sometimes struggle with understanding that, because, and also I'm a woman and I use my intuition. And so where do you see the differences of intuition and emotion? Because they often get confused.
They're totally different, totally different. But
in fact, you might have mentioned this in our last video. I think you did actually, didn't you?
I'm not sure. I can't remember at all.
It was intuition and
maybe.
oh,
But we didn't speak about intuition and emotion. I don't think so. Well, anyway, sometimes I really wipe stuff out. So yeah, it doesn't occupy any space. But I can say, in that moment of enlightenment that I had, from then on, there were no more, it was like I became emotionless for a long, long time, in a sense that there was no sort of strong anything, no sadness, no anguish, no any of that. So when we're talking about emotions, it's important to realize there are different levels of emotions, because as a human being, one of the gifts of being in human form is having emotion, but it depends whether the emotion is being created from a space of separation, therefore fear, or whether the emotion is being created from a space of intuition and therefore love. So it's very different. So of course it's important to acknowledge the emotions that are there, for one simple reason, is that the emotions are tied into memory, and memory is aspects of personality that are playing out stories. The stories are the programs, as you said, what we learn, what we conceive to be wrong and right, comfortable and uncomfortable, good and bad, and so on. And so emotions per se do not exist. We cannot have an emotion does not remain alive if there's not a part of us attached to it. Otherwise, it's just a moment and you let go of it. And you come back to that lake of equanimity, which is the space of intuition. The space of intuition is naturally a stillness. It's naturally, how can I say, it's a space. Actually, that's why intuition doesn't speak loud. That's why most people don't hear it, because it's very quiet, because it's very gentle. I would say that emotion, in the sense that we were talking about just now, is harsh, and this other kind of emotion is gentle. So there are, of course, always emotions for a human being. The thing is whether you're gonna use the emotions productively to serve you. Use the fact that you are a human being who can laugh and who can cry and who can feel joy and who can feel empathy and who can feel so many different things. Or if you're going to use the other range of emotions, which is anguish, which is deep despair, which is fear, of course, is the mother harbinger of all of them. So we don't even need to mention that one. Rage, all of these stem only from one thing: the fear of not being enough.
Of course, yeah.
And when you know you are all there is, then you cannot unknow it. And that you know in your intuition. Everyone has this profound knowingness of this. So the range of emotions available from abundance, from the knowingness of who you are, is of course completely different, and it is not erratic, and it is not consuming. I would say that's one of the big differences as well, is that emotions from fear are consumers of energy, whilst emotions from love are givers of energy. They nourish you.
That is a really great kind of identikit of emotions and how to understand them. So to recap, not because I think it's needed, but really for my benefit, is that emotions, some of them seem to come from a place of separation and fear. And they are the ones that are consuming in terms of your energies, and really based on the memories, the stories that have become programs for us. And then you've got your intuition, which is basically coming from a place of love and stillness. And the emotions that come from your intuition are really coming from love, and they're nourishing.
Yeah.
And it's okay to, you know, they're really, would you say they're the first human emotions? You know,
probably before fear, before any kind of fear of not being loved settles in.
Yeah.
That would be the primal feeling, that the sense of being comfortable, of being held, of being nurtured, of being loved, of being cared for, all of these different emotions. And then how do we deal with the other ones that got caught up in time and space with the stories? They are relevant. Those emotions are relevant. That's why it's important to acknowledge that they're there, but they're not relevant to use and abuse you or anyone else. They're just relevant to make those parts of you known to you, that you can then shift them from that space of holding some sort of reality in place, because that's what they do. They hold a certain paradigm in place. Now, if you don't want that paradigm anymore, because you've realized, okay, this has served me so far, but it doesn't serve me anymore. Not, oh my God, I don't want this anymore. It doesn't work. It just creates more of that thing that you don't want.
Yep.
So from how shifting is a really loving thing. It's a gentleness. It's what, basically, I'd say it's what the feminine provides for the masculine.
Yeah.
And that's where the reunion happens. The feminine provides that space for all that is, and here we would see masculine as the world outside, as the world of form, as in opposed to feminine as the world of formless, as the goddess. And the god is happening everywhere. And so she just holds that space for him to collapse into nothingness. And that's what happens within us, in our coming back home within us. It happens in lovemaking, and it happens everywhere if we are paying attention to how you can balance things. She just provides that gentleness for him to then provide her with everything she could possibly need.
Yes, that totally resonates with me. And it's perfect time, actually. We've got a comment from Victoria. The feminine has the power to be both the giver and receiver of life's source, and the masculine energy can not create without the Shakti, and those creative forces she is. Learning as woman to control those inner forces gives us great power and awareness, and a huge responsibility to humanity. And then we've got Wolfgang. Victoria, I'm guessing husband, life partner, blessed blessed person that you spend your life with. This is Wolfgang. When you say to acknowledge the emotions, I agree, but then to allow and not judge whatever emotion is happening. Yeah, absolutely. Remembering emotions are just energy, and if we don't place a label on them, they have no true power. Absolutely. We can also learn to work with that energy and bring it up into the heart and higher for a conscious use and spiritual awareness. Fantastic.
That's what I'm talking about, to bring it back home. There you are.
Yeah, and Victoria's saying yes to all of the above. So I'm guessing that is husband, wonderful person that you're spending your life with, or all of the above. I don't know, but yes.
Emotion is energy in motion.
Yes. Yeah.
Therefore, you can create a new motion for that energy to flow once you realize whatever is not serving you in the stuck emotions, in the ones that eventually produce pain or discomfort or whatever, because it's always about pain, discomfort, or comfort, and ease and grace. It's always these things that make you choose. And bringing it back home. You cannot bring anything back home with judgment. Ever.
Yes.
Because the judgment creates something else that you cannot see as you.
Yes. That really rings quite a few bells for me. I was having a long, actually almost 2-hour conversation with Jeff Granville yesterday. So I'm going to be post-producing that at some point. But we were talking about his somatic trauma imprint release, part 2, and how you can use breath work to release those.
Yeah.
And just, how the discomfort forms on our bodies. And how it's our responsibility to release them, but also the possibility that we can help other people release them too. So
exactly.
It's communion, because it's so very easy to consider that this is my problem and it's my responsibility to release it. But I was thinking, what about babies or people who are nonverbal, like people using his method for releasing trauma that we're holding in our bodies. For people who can't articulate it, I think there are people that can almost make love to them, like commune with them, to be breathing with them, to be feeling with them, as a role of an empath, or because we're also doing it for planet Earth as well. It occurred to me that there are stuck emotions and traumas all over Earth. And there are stuck emotions and traumas that lots of people really don't want to work with, but they're somehow stuck in the ether. Do you get that sensation?
They are, but remaining, there is also the issue of empathy is a very interesting one. I would say there is a big difference between being just an empath or being compassionate.
Yes.
And being an empath and not getting tangled into the stories would be being compassionate.
Passionate. Yes.
Because the story tells itself from whichever perspective we are viewing it. So then each perspective will give it a different point of view.
Yeah.
So it's not about the stories and getting tangled into the stories of, whoever or whatever is living that.
Yeah.
Is bringing that to another different space, which in that space of compassion, there is complete acceptance. There is no judgment whatsoever. And that in itself provides that space where everything can come to rest. So basically, it's providing a space of letting go of whatever one is holding on to, because trauma is only there because it's being held on to.
Yeah.
Until such time as one is ready to face it. It just remains there so that we can, because we're not ready to deal with that in that moment. So it remains there, very patiently held until it can be released. But this release in compassion, in a space of non-judgment, just provides that dissolution. It doesn't feed the story, and it doesn't feed anything else. It just discharges the whole thing.
And that brings us back round to where we came into this conversation about
with the breath, I would say. Yeah, about lovemaking. And actually, during lovemaking, the breath is also a really important ingredient.
Yeah. And also, you know, when you're sort of like lovemaking, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here like a little 5-year-old. Not a 5-year-old, that's wrong. Like you know, a pubescent woman, you know, like, you know, is not used to talking about lovemaking. But in lovemaking, you also don't feel judged, do you? Like when you're really making love, all of a sudden the stories disappear.
All of that disappears.
It totally disappears, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And I really, really love the distinction between empathy and compassion, because I realize that, you know, and anyone listening will recognize that, you know, I'm definitely sort of on the empathy scale, but I'm not really at compassion all the time. I have to remind myself to, where's the compassion? I have to remind myself to like let go of the story. Whereas you are the real deal, Tanya, in as much as I've never known you to get into any story. In all the time I've known, well, I say all the time, in the 4 years we've known each other, I've never known you to pick up on a story and run with it. You are there as that witness.
Exactly. Being a witness.
Installing compassion. And it reminds me, I remember now why I was talking about intuition. We were talking about the difference between instinct and intuition last time.
There you are. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
We've got a couple of comments coming in. So Victoria's shared with us, the land carries psychic patterns from past experience. Absolutely.
Just like people,
like our bodies.
Just like the body. Yeah,
definitely. So I'm really looking forward to post-producing the conversation I had with Jeff yesterday from his perspective.
Must be super, super fantastic.
I can't wait. I really can't. I love working with him so much.
Yeah.
And you.
Me too. I also love Jeff.
Yeah. Well, I do think, you know, the three of us are going to end up doing something rather amazing together. And he's having a conversation with Geraldine Orozco as well.
Yeah.
They're doing something together. So I think we are going to be doing stuff.
We're all doing stuff together.
Absolutely. So Barbara's added in, sometimes I breathe with my daughter Sophia, feeling the unconditional love and compassion when she's not feeling so well. Oh yeah, that's good mumming. That is exactly the same way as I do with my personality aspects. And after a while, she feels better. That is creating love, I believe. I would agree with that. Oh, 100%. And funnily enough, Jeff and I were talking about that very thing yesterday, is how we can like help our children heal and release things. You know, they might not be conscious of it, but
no, you're just there.
Yeah, you're doing it for them. You're doing it with them. I didn't realize. I mean, you hear that, you know, it's good to kiss a little upset better. You know, like when your child hurts itself and you kiss it better. Mummy, kiss it better. And I was talking about it with Jeff a couple of recordings ago, and weirdly enough, our 2-year-old has just started coming up and saying kiss it better. And I've done it a couple of times, but not really paid too much attention to it, or recognizing the true magic that exists in doing that. But in the space of the last 3 or 4 weeks, he has had so much release from me just kissing it and paying it that attention with compassion and kindness, and he just gets straight up and runs off. But very, you know, just like last week, he said, oh, kiss me better on my toes, and he kept pointing out different parts of his body, and he had a kind of almost like full body kiss, and he was like absolutely radiant after. He was so happy. So Barbara, I think you're doing an amazing job. I think that's amazing.
Definitely. Sophia is such a special little child. And because of this constant being in that love, like your kids, I mean, you know, wherever you go and you take your kids, everyone is always so fascinated by them. Because of that,
they've done very well, because, you know, as some of you might know, we moved out of our house a couple of weeks ago, and we're actually not even a couple of weeks ago, a week ago, and we're in temporary accommodation until we move again. And yeah, it's confusing for them, and yet they're doing really, really well, and we're having a great time with them. but it takes a while for all of us to catch up together and be able to relax. Bless them. I love my children so much. They're great. They're really
Let me ask you something about, you mentioned now, so to going into the astrology, you mentioned control is a theme now. It's interesting because in my group that we're doing the Enlightening Showers of Presence, which is the 3-month experience that has started 3 weeks ago, the theme that has come up to look at and choose what to do with in these last weeks has been definitely control.
Okay. What would you like me to? Shall I bring?
If you can bring up the map and share what you were seeing when we decided to go into this theme of growing into love.
Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look. So I'm actually going to make it bigger, but keep talking to me. Right. I don't know. Can everyone see that? Okay.
Yeah, there's the banner there, but
yeah. Let me just take the banner off. Let's just remove that.
And there's our yeah, that's good.
I don't know if I can.
Whole, but
let me.
There.
Right. So at the time that we started this recording, can you see my mouse, Tanya? Is my mouse showing up?
Yeah.
So where my mouse is, like if you were to look at this as a clock, we're looking at 9 o'clock. This is like the starting point of our show tonight. For like the moment we started our show. Pluto, which is definitely about control, is right on the starting point on our ascendant. Really showing. Now Pluto is definitely about control. Pluto is also, if you think about the Greek counterpart is Hades. So if you think about Pluto and Hades, it's like the god of the underworld. It's our hell dimension. It is death. It is dying. It is things collapsing. It's decay. It's all of those kinds of ideas. And of course, decay, death, it's finite. And I think that's where we get the idea of control from. Pluto is often really, really strong in the charts of people who are like psychopaths and killers and anyone that has really, really strong interests in controlling others. But it's also very strong in the charts of people who are very good at coming back to life, like letting everything die away and then resurrecting. So it's very much about resurrection. And so I think one of the themes going on right now, which I'm seeing in the media in terms of, like there's a pandemic, allegedly I say, but the effects of the pandemic do seem to be very real. It's controlling how we all behave. And it also has this idea about illness and death and dying, and it's bringing up all those focuses. And if you think about it, if you're not sure if you want to live or die, if someone was to put a pillow over your head and try and suffocate you, all of a sudden you would know exactly what you're about to do. You'd either yield to it and allow yourself to pass away, or you'd fight for your life. And so Pluto is very, very much a visceral fight, to stay alive. It's very much about survivability. But actually, I always see it as the phoenix rising from the ashes. If you think about it, the phoenix burns itself out with all these really strong emotions and stuff, and then out of the ashes, as everything has died away, it comes back to life. And so Pluto, when Pluto shows up in a chart in a really strong place, I always see it as a message to us to yield part of our personality. Something about the way we're being needs to change, because all it's doing is holding us in stuckness. It's controlling us, and it becomes the thing that rules the way we're living. It stops us from living in freedom. The thing that we're fearing the most, like fear is a definite Pluto thing. So it's like looking at our fears, our survival, and just letting go of it. I mean, I recognize, like, not everybody has a really strong Pluto in their charts, but for instance, the charts that I've seen most of in the last 5 years, they've either had their moon in Capricorn, like the moon is actually in Capricorn today, or their sun in Capricorn, because people who are Capricorns or have their moon in Capricorn at birth right now or in the last 5 years will have had Pluto very slowly moving over their really personal parts of their charts. And so these are the people that are being challenged right now to yield part of their personality. And someone that you know obviously very well, Pedro and I, and any other Sagittarian in the last 15 years will have gone through some really significant changes as Pluto went over a lot of our birth planets here in Sagittarius. But obviously people around here aren't necessarily getting that because Pluto moves so slowly. It takes 258 years to come all the way around.
Whoa.
So a lot of people that really have been struggling are, born around this Capricorn time. But anyway, that doesn't answer your question necessarily. But
it does. It does.
It?
Yeah. that says that gives people the idea of why anything that is exerting control and therefore a need to keep things known or alive in the old way is now being brought forth to be addressed, to die.
Yes, absolutely. Let's bring us back. Oh no, hang on. So that's us next to the chart. The one of the things I wanted to say about the chart at the moment, like Pluto, like as of today, Pluto and the Sun, I'm just kind of moving my cursors in between them. They're in a really lovely alignment, and the moon is there and the ascendant is there. So it's like our emotions. Right now we're in a place of wanting to yield and wanting to recognize where our fears might be holding us back. And the Sun at the moment is in a very sort of practical of service sign in the sign of Virgo. And also we've got something going on. Where was it? Where else was I wanting to be? I can't remember now.
You wanted to go into love.
Yeah. I can't remember quite what was really capturing my attention, but anyway, let's come away from this and come back to us. So these are times, like in the last year in particular, Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn were all aligned, and Jupiter's about our expansion. It's also about big authorities and people with lots of influence, and Saturn's about rules and regulations. And so having like the hell dimension with rules and regulations and expansion all kind of working together was a pretty weird thing. And pretty much any astrologer that I know who looks at what's going on has been saying for at least 10 years, I can see that they're all aligning at the same time. That's awful. What's going to happen? That's us in our stories. I don't know many astrologers that don't run with stories. We all kind of do run with stories. But if I was looking at that from a perspective of compassion for the last 10 years, I'd be thinking, wow, there's this opportunity for humanity. Wow, it's huge. We are going to face our fears. My goodness, we're going to face them. But boy, at the other end. So a lot of it's to do with perspective.
Pedro usually recommends my work and sends me always people with Sun and Pluto conjunct, because that's on my own chart.
Yes.
And so because I transcended that challenge of because Sun and Pluto conjunct is sort of like constant. For me, it used to be like those constant fireworks, like constant bombs going out and constant stuff all the time. And now, of course, it's not like that anymore. But fortunately, gosh, it was high power, high intensity all the time. And so that's why. So he says, everyone on that sphere is good to work with you, because you're gonna help them move through all of that stuff if they want to. There you are.
That's great to hear, actually, because actually one of my children has got the Sun and Pluto together. I don't want to say which one, but one of my children is like Sun and Pluto together, and definitely control is something that is really motivating to them. It's really funny because I think, if I'm not mistaken, his Moon and Pluto are in a conjunction, and I've got both my mum and Carl's mum have their Moon and Pluto together, and so it's like
there's always these
controlling
similarities. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's huge. So I'd never really thought about it like that, like your sun and Pluto, and working through that energy of how to release
How
that.
to die, how to
Yes.
die. Basically, it's how to
Yes.
die
Wow, it is, isn't it?
and be born again.
Yeah.
It's really the energy of the phoenix.
Mm.
Yeah.
See,
So
I've just had, as Pedro has as well. We've had Pluto go over our sun, and it felt like there was absolutely nothing I could do other than yield. It's like every
yeah.
step forward I took was never the right one, and I just like push back. And in the end, you just have to kind of let go and almost fall back
Yeah.
into the river and say, "I don't care if I drown."
Right.
Totally let
Just
go.
melt into it.
Yeah,
Just melt into it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that's basically the big opportunity for humanity at this moment, is realizing, actually what is presenting itself for me, in my view, is really this realization that fighting against does not work.
Yeah, you're
Like
right.
it's sort of finally looking at it, and whoever is ready to surrender and say, okay, white flag,
Mm,
I'm no longer going to continue fighting. Is
yeah.
actually, I'd like to ask you a question, like a
Go on.
really tricky one here.
Go on, I
Is
like
like,
tricky questions. In public as well. Tanya, go on.
okay, so it's when you share those things that, those really hot
Mm,
themes of
on Facebook.
violence that's going
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
what triggers you? What do you feel that sort of, what triggers you from inside?
Well, it's really funny because before you asked that, I was thinking, damn it, I always share a ton of stuff before I talk with Tanya. But
And then
that's
I'm gonna ask you these questions
yeah, it's
live.
so funny.
Oh my god.
It's funny because I was thinking, God, what did I share today? Because I sometimes go
No,
for a
not
week.
now,
No,
not
no,
now. It was, I saw it a
I
time
often
ago.
go for a week, like about 4 or 5 days without sharing anything, and then all of a sudden I see a few things, and I'm like, whoo! It's like going shopping. You know, when you haven't
Yeah.
been shopping for ages and you buy a load of stuff. Oh, Carl's saying I'm outside now. Let me just quickly let him in, and then I'll answer your question.
Okay. Okay.
Have
Thank
a
you very
guess. Do
much.
you want to? We've got
I'll show
the
the
comments.
comments here.
Perfect.
Right.
One sec.
Okay. So we have Calming Waters Tai Chi. Love that name, huh? Hi. And you say Pluto entered my 11th house in 2019 on the day I broke my back. Gosh, that was a really powerful one, with a backbone to the story. And I'm sure it produced a huge shift, right? A huge shift in consciousness. Fabulous. Thanks for sharing. And then we have Victoria. Myths and stories help humans understand life. It's time to deeply understand what stories and are hidden and being shadowed by our attachment and expectations from our common traumas and separation from true authentic love. Yes, isn't it right now the time to address all of these stories within the traumas, and then create new stories, because that's, at the end of the day, the way we perceive ourselves changes completely depending on what stories we're telling ourselves. So here is the great opportunity at the moment on earth to address those stories and realize what triggers us in the traumatic ones and what we can change. So we're
Hello.
here. Wow, I can't wait to hear your answer, Louisa.
I don't know. Do you know what I felt? There's a few things. There's a couple of stories obviously playing out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out of breath because I just ran up one flight of stairs. I'm so out of health.
Champion woman.
Whew, I've obviously got a story somewhere deep in the recesses about not about telling tales, but about keeping quiet about
Injustice?
things. Yes, injustice. I get really upset about injustice.
Yeah.
And especially if I know I've been lied to, and then I find out that, oh my goodness, I could have, if only I'd realized I was right all along, or yes, I knew I was being lied to. And at some level, I've got a really strong bullshit monitor. And when I realized something which people are taking as truth, and then I realized actually that's not true, or that's hidden, or we're being manipulated.
Or there are different
yeah, I
labels.
mean, there are definitely different labels and different levels of truth. But I think things that played out in my childhood are obviously still coming on. And yeah, I feel like there's a responsibility to help people. I know there's lots of people that say, oh, it's really important that everyone wakes up, and when everyone wakes up, you know, everything's gonna be good. And I used to be like that, and I'm not anymore. I'm not that worried if people wake up, because I realize that there's some arrogance in that, you know, the idea that I've woken up and you haven't, and if you had, and so I'm not in that place at all. But I realized that my life got a lot simpler when I recognized that I'd lived my life according to what people thought was the right way of living it, and it damn well near killed me to try and follow all those ideas. And then when I realized that actually those ideas are based on a lot of things that aren't necessarily true, at first I was really angry, and then I was really relieved, because I realized that in the knowledge that actually what's being suggested as a perfect lifestyle isn't really that perfect. I then felt quite comfortable to live according to my own ideas. And so every now and again, when I post these things, I'm posting them not to tell people what to think, but to show them that what they're experiencing might not be exactly as it is. Just to offer a different perspective. But I do, you were asking, your actual question was, what state am I in when I'm sharing those? To answer that, I'd have to say probably feeling like if some of these things go undetected, and if this situation is seen as the norm, I'm in danger. So there's this feeling, like, for instance, you know, people believing that it's okay to force people to have medical treatments that they may not want, and that it's okay to imprison people if they haven't got a particular thing that begins with a P and ends in a T, that you get if you've done things twice or 3 times or 4 times or 5 times. The idea, like in France, I was following, because I lived in France for a while, the idea that you can cut off a food supply to people as a way of forcing them to have a treatment that they don't want. And I just think that's really wrong. But there's a lot of people out there that think that's the right thing to do, that we should force people to have something that goes against their inner compass, what their inner body is saying. And I think that's wrong. And I just want people to see it, at least see that that's going on, so they can make their own minds up. I almost want to, because they're not going to, if they're just watching the TV, if they're just listening to the radio, they're not going to get that. They're not going to know. But I realize part of me is terrorizing people.
Yeah, because
they're in a shitty mood themselves.
the question is here, also realizing that whatever triggers us, that whatever really makes us feel strongly about it, is playing out inside of us in some way, because whatever shows up, that, of course, things show up, but the difference is whether they trigger us or not, whether we feel drawn to those things or not. And the question here would be for, you know, to ponder, for everyone to really feel, is there's no right or wrong answer. Even like, I asked this question just to know how you're feeling in those moments, to ponder what can be the way. Now we're given the choice to stop fighting, right? We're given the choice at this moment to stop fighting. So how, in your own realm, in your own inner realm, what needs to stop fighting, so that the fight can stop showing up outside?
I need to trust.
Yeah.
I at some level, I
Feel you're
distrust.
safe. You need to feel you're
Yeah, yeah.
safe. That's it. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
if I felt that people making decisions that could affect me, like consciously making, I'm not talking about somebody who might be driving a bit fast and knocking me over and it being an accident, and yeah, maybe because we all drive fast from time to time. We'll have these moments of unconsciously harming each other, and we don't mean to do that, but there are people out there that I think that are making very conscious decisions which could harm another person, and I recognize that we're all in this together, like we're all part of this co-creative web.
Yeah.
And we're all co-creating at the same time. And in recent years, I've recognized that actually my mum and dad being kind of unaware of it and just feeling peaceful and calm is probably more spiritual or better for the world than me recognizing things and being at odds with it. But then I
if
look
you
at them,
are, that's a thing to acknowledge as well. If you're looking at that, it's something that is calling your attention. So it does need to be acknowledged.
Definitely. But I also recognize that when people are feeling at peace about things, they might also not be seeing that somebody is actually working against them and working to harm them. You know, there are lots of sort of innocent people that just absolutely take what they're being told and they believe it's for their best interests. And they've not thought about it. And in those moments, I think, oh my God, I'm in this psychic web with all these people who think this is great. I'm going to get pulled down.
And how do you,
drowning.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I pulled up the question, is because then you go to the lower frequency.
Yeah.
And the invitation here is exactly that if you raise your frequency, not in ignorance of something, it's a different thing, because now you know what's going on. But now you're not being sort of shifted here and there by knowing that. So if you raise your frequency, chances are that what you are providing with that frequency can have a much more powerful effect than the other things, because the other things, they trigger fear. Like, for instance, like if there's this mob of policemen hitting a woman and stuff like that, that will trigger fear, and fear is a low frequency. And so that frequency provides more of the same. So the really hard thing for us as human beings, because we are in a physical body and in a physical world, and we know that a lot of shit is happening out there, and is being able to know that and yet choose to raise the frequency despite that. And that is, we've spoken about that over and over again,
we have.
But I mean, it's always a different point of view or a different slant that we bring into it. And and then it's really that challenge of, gosh, people should know about this, but on the other hand, can I let go of this and love myself so much that I will raise to love, and that will provide more love, even if people don't know about it. Which is, interestingly enough, it's the same as you were saying just now, as providing that love for a baby or for someone who is nonverbal or whatever. You can only provide that level of consciousness if you're in it. You have absolutely
hit it on the head there, because you're right. I guess in those moments you could think the nonverbal or the baby who's not part of it. I mean, yes, like how are people who can't see what's going on going to see it?
They can bypass it. They can bypass it by coming into a different frequency, just because you're providing a different frequency. Because the thing is, we are all conscious at some level, but we can be aware of that expanded consciousness or not. But the only way that consciousness can make itself known is by elevating the frequency. you cannot access your expanded consciousness if you are in fear.
Yeah. I love these conversations so much, because, you know, at the start when you were saying like living in the gap between that love and like being fully expanded, and then the fear, and kind of navigating the two, that is how I feel, and it is excruciating. And
one
days
foot
when
here and one there.
like the best I've come up with in recent times is just to post lots of funny memes to kind of illustrate points
Bring the
with humor. Yeah. But actually, when I'm not posting anything at all, it's probably when I'm actually holding space and just being loving, and just thinking, no, everything's fine. I trust that everyone's doing their thing, everything's going fine, and I'm in my own space. And then every now and again, I saw something really quite shocking. I saw a child being held down by police, by a nurse, and having something done to them. And it was so shocking. I literally, if I could have grabbed these people out of my screen, I'd have beaten them up. I would have not wasted any time to let. I mean, it creates such a strong physical reaction in me. And in those moments when I see those, I'm like, not on my watch. It's not coming from compassion. It's just like, I cannot believe I'm related to people like that. I cannot believe it. But we are, and there's a part of me.
They are part of us as well.
Yeah. There's a part of me that's obviously capable of doing that. And that's the
hardest
shocking
thing to
I
admit.
So much.
Yeah, the hardest thing to admit is that you know, that they're all part of us.
Yeah.
And that's why it's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Because at some level we are providing that as a whole collective.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that each and every single one of us is providing it, but as a collective that is available because it's being provided from within our own inner realms. And really, there is such a relief and release and liberation to just be able to, okay, I admit, I am that. I'll share just a small little example. Like when I was going through a very strong process of integrating past lifetimes, and of course through accessing parts of me in this lifetime, in this now, and then more of that stuff came, and it came from the past. And one of them was realizing how empowering and seductive and I don't know, like it gave me a sense of victory in past lifetimes to kill, to be in the war field, to be a warrior, and to have that spade in my hand and just cut everyone's head off, not knowing who the hell was standing in front of me. And it reminded me of that movie that how do you call it? You know, the ones that the Immortals.
I don't watch movies. I can't watch them without crying.
it was a series that was on TV some years ago, and whenever the guy chopped another one's head off, he became more immortal. So basically, this is the depiction of how it works within us, that by killing something, and meaning that by destroying something, we feel empowered because that thing that was causing us fear or pain is no longer right there, right now. And so realizing that and admitting, oh gosh, whoa, my God, the smell of blood, all of that, it was just the crazy exhilaration, several lifetimes, and realizing that and owning up to it, and then coming to peace with that, it changed everything, because it showed me that really I could not be judging and criticizing these other people who do that now, because I know where they're coming from, and I also went through that experience. and then being able to walk through it without a judgment, and finally realizing, of course, I didn't gain anything from that, so there's no point. And then when you come into reunion within, there is no point whatsoever, because you cannot even fathom the idea of hurting another, let alone kill another. But in that other consciousness of fear, there is always the need for control.
Yeah.
And therefore the need for power, because that gives us a sense of having things taken care of, and that we can trust ourselves because we'll take care of things, but we can't trust anyone else. And so that was really powerful for me, realizing you've been the killer over and over again, and you loved it, you know.
Gosh. I suspect I can't actually remember any past lives. I've got a couple
Well,
of
it just came
vague memories.
naturally. I didn't make an effort to remember these things. And I do believe that it does come naturally to anyone if it's the point. I mean, if it's the point. In that case, it was presenting itself as necessary for me to transcend to a different level of consciousness. And so I remembered. And basically the most strong thing was the feeling of how good that felt.
Yeah.
And not feeling ashamed or guilty is the main thing in that moment, to be able to bring that warrior who's so tired of fighting his way through the battlefield back home. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Tanya.
You're welcome. I don't feel I need to hide it because I'm at peace with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. Puts everything else into perspective, doesn't it? Like, you know, I've struggled in the past to say I've had alcohol problems and things like that, and that I've been a bit of a shit, done some horrible things in this lifetime. I can't imagine
what we've done in others.
yeah. I think it's quite good that I don't really remember.
And at that time, you know, it was normal to go into the battlefield, and these were just things that were part of life. So also we have to realize that, of course, depending on the time that we were living, certain things that are now unacceptable were at another time. But I mean, still these things happen.
Yeah.
Over and over again. And until each one of us can own up to these things, the battle will keep on going on. And there will always be a reason to cut another head, even if it's figuratively.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is really growing into love.
Flipping heck, isn't it? I know we've got a theme for our next one, but actually we almost need to do a growing into love part
into love
2,
part 2.
Because I guess if you are growing into love, then yes, you will be able to love all those things.
Yeah, that's it. That's the point. Is not to say it was okay to do that. It's just, it was an experience. You can't undo the experience. And it always has brought you further. I mean, you as the wholeness of source is taken further with every single experience. And when you can see it from the point of view of the soul has no judgment around any of the experiences. They are just experiences. Of course, that's why then you don't need judgment anymore to deal with life. Then you will be coming from a space of love instead of a space of judgment.
Yeah.
It's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And then you realize, you know, I've been the assassin and the rapist and the this and the that and the, you know, you name it, whatever. And I came back, and I have the opportunity now to love all of that back home. Why would I want to do anything else?
Yeah.
Now that I remember.
I am so if I could hug you right now, I'll put my arms through
I
I
feel it. I feel it.
Yeah, you can feel my intention. I'm quite exhausted now by all this.
And we've had a long chat today.
Yeah, it's been remarkable.
Love, it's love.
Yeah. Yes, we've grown into love. Thank you so much, Tanya. And I'd like to just thank
you.
everybody that's joined us today. So people that have commented, we've had Gregor, Matea, Alice from Canada, Barbara, Joanna, Primos. Is it Primos or
Primosh?
Primosh. Victoria, Carl, and
Calming Waters.
Oh, and Shannon. Calming Waters. I can't remember your real name, but I know, if I'm not mistaken, you work with Jeff, don't you? You're
okay.
I know we're friends on Facebook now, and I've just forgotten your name, but bless you. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, thank you.
And
everybody.
You'll be here next time, right?
Yes.
And we'll be together with some of the people who are at this moment on the other side.
Yeah, that feels amazing. I love the thought of that so very much.
It's going to be a different thing.
Yeah, it's going to be very bubbly, isn't it?
Yeah. And loving too.
Yeah, it's Sharon Mundy.
Okay.
So if I'm not mistaken, you're coming from, is it Seattle? Is that right?
Let me just
thank you for joining us anyway.
Theme. What's the theme? I've got it here. Let me just check our theme for next month. Isn't
it just celebrating you because it's your birthday?
I don't think that's only the theme, but it's celebrating life. Life. Let me see. So it's on the 1st of October, if I'm not wrong, because my birthday is on the 29th. And is this when the sun transits? Is it the return of the sun? Does it happen on the 1st this time? Maybe that's why you said that.
I can check when your solar return happens. Let me just check now.
So it says, the magnificent phoenix you are. That's the theme.
Okay, let's just see, when is Tanya's solar return? So that is when the sun returns to the exact spot it was in at her time, place and date of birth
back in 1972.
Don't need to reveal your age, don't worry.
I don't care.
No, that's good. Actually, your lunar return is actually happening on your on the 29th, on your birthday. So we're actually the day after. We're meeting on the day after, but
we're meeting 2 days later because we're meeting on the 1st.
Oh yeah, sorry, 2 days later. But I mean, you'll be in your solar return. You'll be
on my birth date.
It's actually on your birthday because it's not always on the same as your birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Tanya and I are going to be meeting up again in just a couple of weeks' time, and we'll be talking about celebrating being human, celebrating
the phoenix
rising.
Celebrating the magnificent phoenix.
Yeah.
That everyone is.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see you again. And if Tanya and I can be of any help, I'm sure you'll echo this, won't you, Tanya? Please do feel free to get in touch with us. You can really reach me. It's Louisa at Feel Good Astrology. How can people reach you, Tanya?
inpassioncoaching.com and on Facebook, TC Aila.
Yeah.
And that's it. We had the banner there.
Yeah.
But no, it's gone somewhere else.
Yeah, I took it off, didn't I? But here it is. There you go. So anyway, lots of love to you wherever you're in the world.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you.